Hello again, 5th grade. I'm going to move on to pages 346 and 347 in your social studies textbook. And we're going to talk about traveling west. Okay, and make sure to take notes as we go too. And if you want to do that worksheet that I provided too, I can help you out with that at the end of this. But it's not required, it's just to kind of help you make sure you're understanding. All right, so we're on 346 at the top. Remember, one note per paragraph. It says traveling west. Many families who traveled west packed large wagons so full of food and supplies that there was little room for people to ride in them. Early roads were rocky dirt paths, and there were no bridges across rivers. Wagons rolling over the rough roads often broke apart and had to be repaired. Okay, so think about that. So they had all their stuff that they needed to live in these wagons, and they had to take it all with them everywhere they went, and the wagons would just fall apart. Okay, next paragraph. Floating on rivers was faster and more comfortable than traveling over bumpy roads. The Ohio River was the most heavily traveled river. Families, furniture, animals, and equipment floated down the Ohio in flatboats. A flatboat was a large rectangular boat partly covered by a roof. Settlers also traveled on canals, such as the Erie Canal, that connected bodies of water. A canal is a waterway built for boat travel and shipping. So that paragraph had two vocabulary words in there, a flatboat and a canal. And you can see a picture of what a flatboat looks like on that page. And you can see they had to put their horses and everything on there too. So it's just a really big, wide boat, very flat. That's why it's called that. Making a home. When pioneers arrived on the frontier, they cut down trees to create a clearing in the woods. They used the logs from these trees to build a house. Inside the house, they might have only a table, a bed, a spinning wheel, and a few dishes. So if you think back to when we read Little House in the Big Woods in 3rd grade, those of you that were with me, and also if you've ever read Little House on the Prairie, it talks about them making a log house. So this is similar to what Pa had to do in that book at the time. Settlers grew corn and other grains and raised farm animals. Most early settlers grew just enough to feed their families with no surplus or trade or sell. So they mainly were just worried about feeding their family, and then if they had extra, they would sell it for a little income, but most of the time it was just to feed themselves. Frontier life was hard, especially for women. They lived far from family and friends. Frontier men and women did the same kinds of work as the American Indian men and women who lived nearby. While men went hunting, women took care of their children and farms. Again, that's pretty similar to Little House on the Prairie and Little House in the Big Woods. Life was difficult, but many settlers lived better than they had in Europe or in the East. One pioneer wrote, "We were worth nothing when we landed at this place. And now we have 1 yoke of oxen, 1 cow, and 9 hogs." And remember, at this time, they mainly traded for things that they needed. They didn't really have a set price for things, so they might trade, some meat that they hunted for, or an animal skin for fabric they needed for their clothes, or for flour that they wanted to cook with, stuff like that. Okay, I'm on 347 now. Chief Logan. American Indians did not believe that land could be bought or sold. They agreed to sign treaties letting settlers hunt on the land, but not to own it or live on it. So they're trying to share their resources, but they didn't want the settlers to take over their land. The Iroquois signed one such treaty in 1768. Settlers quickly moved onto the land where Iroquois, Shawnee, Mingo, and other American Indians were living. Chief Logan was a Mingo who had always been friendly to the pioneers. In 1774, however, settlers murdered his family. So you can imagine he's probably not going to be so nice anymore. Chief Logan led many attacks against settlers after his family was killed. Like Logan, American Indians would fight with settlers over land for years to come. So like we've seen throughout all the history we've been learning, there's constant battle with the Native Americans and the settlers over the land, and they're going to just keep fighting over that land as we continue on. Okay, so that's the end of the first lesson in chapter 10. And then you should be able to do that worksheet that I gave you along with this. So you can see it's got a little crossword puzzle to fill in there using the vocabulary words. And then hopefully it shouldn't be too difficult for you to figure those out. Just multiple choice. I'll go ahead and go over the answers with you now. So if you haven't done it yet, stop it here and then come back and listen to the answers. Okay, so 1 across says Daniel Boone was one. And so you should have pioneer for that. 2 across says these helped settlers travel on rivers. That's flatboats. 3 down was the Erie blank, advanced travel and shipping. That's canal. And then 4 down, life was often hard here. And that's the frontier. The number 5 for the multiple choice, the first colonists in America settled between the Atlantic Ocean and the, excuse me, we should have C, Appalachian Mountains. Number 6, people tried to cross the Appalachians because the land in the east was A, getting full. They had no more space for all those people coming over. Number 7, Daniel Boone helped clear the C, Wilderness Road. And then number 8 for the fill in the blanks. Thousands of people crossed the Appalachians looking for farmland and opportunities. Moving west was often difficult for settlers, although some were able to travel by river on flatboats. Settlers moved to a region called the frontier, which was already settled by American Indians. Settlers and American Indians fought over land. They also borrowed each other's ideas and customs. Okay, so check over your work and see what you did right and what you got wrong on that. Make sure you have a good understanding of this lesson. And I'll see you for the next one.